Mark Bellison, a slightly overweight and struggling screenwriter in his 40s, is on his way to meet his date. After a bit of searching, he finds her place and knocks on the door. A stunning woman answers. Despite the usual human tendency to lie, even about the most ridiculous or direct things, she tells Mark he's early. She asks him to wait on the sofa, promising to return soon. As she gets ready, she hopes to finish her moment without drawing attention to him. Mark attempts to initiate a conversation, admitting he's self-conscious because he believes the restaurant he reserved might not be upscale enough for her, given his limited budget. As Anna descends the stairs with a smile, Mark rises from the couch as she mentions she enjoys playing with her own image, which immediately triggers his frustration. Their dinner plans are cut short when their table is left with 3 margarita glasses full of Anna. As the bill arrives and the waiter inquires if she'll text him with his number, Anna declines, indicating that she's not interested. The next scene reveals the 2 parting ways near Anna's apartment building, with Mark expressing his gratitude for her company, admitting that he knows he's not her type and only agreed to the date as a favor to her friend Greg, who he believes will never hear from her again. Anna, however, tells him that she enjoyed herself more than she expected and won't know her true feelings towards him until she's sober. Mark, in a cheerful tone, suggests she call him tomorrow if she still has feelings for him. The following day, Mark wakes up and heads to his job. He eventually arrives at the office building and encounters a group of individuals being guided by a tour guide. Among them is Mark, who is recognized as a screenwriter by the group. The tour shifts its attention to Mark, and he, feeling a bit down, waves at them, and has even heard rumors that he might be let go today following a difficult and uncomfortable conversation with his receptionist, Shelley. Mark's deepest fear becomes a reality as he is let go from his position by his hesitant employer, who fears conflicts and believes Mark's films from the early 1900s were uninteresting and lacked appeal to viewers. He is left feeling embarrassed by Brad Kessler, a handsome and renowned screenwriter who lectures on screenwriting, who further belittles Mark by claiming he has always disliked him, and that Mark was assigned to a project that was considered subpar. He also hints that he was intimidated by Mark because he sensed something unique about him, leaving Mark feeling even more defeated. The next day, Mark is jolted awake by his regular 7:30 a.m. alarm and the loud banging on his door by his landlord, demanding his rent. He attempts to explain that he's recently been laid off and only has $300 remaining in his bank account. However, the landlord remains adamant, insisting that he either pays the full $800 or vacates the premises. Mark decides to withdraw all his remaining funds from the bank. He tells the teller he needs $800. The system comes back online, and the teller informs him he only has $300 left. In an unexpected turn of events, the bank teller apologizes to Mark and informs him that their system has mistakenly issued him $800 in large bills, as Mark had asked for. Mark exits the bank with a smile, realizing the gravity of his situation. He then goes on to pay his rent to his bewildered landlord, who inquires about the source of the money, and Mark falsifies the story, claiming he found the money on the street. The following day, Mark is at the bar enjoying a drink with his friend Greg, who is trying to understand what Mark has just come to realize or has just invented. Mark struggles to find the right words to clarify his intentions, so he simply tells Greg a story that isn't true, which Greg ignores, clearly not understanding what a lie is. Mark, growing more frustrated by his inability to explain, decides to test Greg's gullibility by telling him more lies. Greg and the bartender unanimously declared their desire to engage in love-making acts with women. Mark, though reluctant, agreed and left the bar. As Mark strolled down the street, he adopted the demeanor of a predator on the hunt, quickly spotting a stunning blonde approaching him. Mark called out to her, insisting that their encounter was crucial for the survival of the world, and that their lovemaking was vital. They hurried to the closest motel, which seemed unnecessary if the world was indeed ending. However, Mark's guilt gnawed at him, and he eventually pretended to receive a call from NASA, reassuring the woman that the apocalypse was a myth and that they were all safe. This was the first time anyone had heard of the art of lying being introduced to Mark's life as a con artist, where he skillfully manipulated every scenario to his advantage. He managed to stop a police officer from detaining his buddy Greg for driving under the influence while they were headed to the casino to earn money through dishonest means. Mark then went ahead with his cunning scheme to amass wealth. He began to swindle at the roulette table by swapping his bets on the winning numbers, which the dealer readily accepted. He then moved on to the slot machines and told the casino manager he had won a huge jackpot, but no money was dispensed. The manager quickly made up excuses and praised him for his supposed winnings. Mark and Greg, each carrying 4 large buckets filled to the brim with chips and cash, made their way through the casino. Towards the end of the day, Mark engages in a profound discussion with his neighbor, Frank, who expresses a desire to end his life that very night. Mark intervenes, reassuring Frank that everything will be fine and that he will find happiness again. Mark later realizes that deception can also serve a positive purpose. Throughout the day, Mark performs acts of kindness, such as helping a homeless individual withdraw money from the bank and assisting a couple who were arguing at a coffee shop to make up. At an elderly home, Mark spends time with the residents, offering them comfort and joy, and even witnessing some of them shed tears. Later that evening, Mark and Frank enjoy each other's company at Frank's place, sharing beers and watching a TV show. Mark also stumbles upon a documentary where the narrator praises Brad Kessler for his exceptional documentary-making skills, which inspires him to create a new screenplay. Mark's story revolves around the invasion of the 14th century by aliens, with a twist ending where everyone's memories are restored. He wraps up the screenplay and presents it to his former employer and to the audience at Lecture Films, which they all adore, including Brad Kessler, Mark, and his movie turns into a major hit, catapulting him to wealth and stardom. Even as he manages to persuade Anna to give him another chance at a date, which she ultimately declines, citing his looks and genetic traits as reasons for her lack of interest. During their date, Mark is interrupted by a phone call from his mother, who has just suffered a fatal heart attack, marking another significant moment in his life. Mark hurries to the hospital to find his mother, Martha, looking exhausted and frightened, connected to numerous machines. She expresses her fear of death and the concept of eternal nothingness, leaving Mark in tears and unsure of how to respond. He reassures her that her fears are unfounded, going on to share his vision of the afterlife, including the possibility of mansions for everyone to be with their loved ones, Martha being reunited with those she adored, and the idea that she will experience youth again, free from sorrow and pain, filled with love, laughter, and happiness. Martha eventually succumbs to death, shedding a single tear of radiant hope. As the morning progressed, Mark's supposed insights into death catapulted him to global fame. It was discovered that the nurses at the hospital, upon Martha's demise, had been privy to the conversations he had with her, leading to widespread rumors. Like a wildfire, people began to flock to him, eager for his wisdom on the afterlife. This led to him being regarded as a prophet or a spiritual leader, with Anna's support playing a significant role. Mark devises 10 principles or guidelines for leading a fulfilling life and securing a spot in the desirable afterlife. He believes he communicates with a celestial being who governs all, promising significant rewards in the afterlife, as long as one commits no more than 3 wrongs. This televised event catapulted Mark to worldwide fame and initiated a kind of cult among his followers, despite his personal struggles with his own joy and his penchant for deceit. During a picnic with Anna, she inquires whether their wealth and celebrity status would make their offspring more sophisticated, despite his temptation to deceive her. Mark chose honesty over his desire to lie, expressing his belief that it wouldn't. Consequently, Anna persisted in her relationship with Mark's competitor, Brad Kessler, who harbored envy towards Mark's achievements. Brad's self-centered and harsh actions, such as controlling Anna's diet, made her uneasy, yet she consented to marry him after a considerable period. In a surreal twist, we witness Mark waking up one morning in his lavish home, sporting a biblical-like long beard and hair. Anna enters, explaining she's occupied with her career and that she's come to inform him of her engagement and presents him with his wedding invitation. Mark gestures dismissively and pleads with her not to go through with it. Anna informs him that the wedding is scheduled for tomorrow and invites him to attend. And as she leaves the mansion later that day at the park, she notices a boy who seems to be enjoying his ice cream. The boy is later teased for his weight by other children, but Anna steps in to defend him, telling him that he is far more than his appearance. Calling him short and fat is just a shallow label. She then talks to the boy, reassuring him that he is more than just his physical attributes, calling him short and fat brine, the morning before their wedding. Greg managed to persuade Mark that there was still a possibility for him with Anna. At Anna and Brad's wedding, Mark voiced his objections to the union, but was assured that only the divine could halt it. Brad and Anna then requested Mark to inquire about what Anna should do, but he declined, insisting that Anna should decide for herself. Anna left the ceremony, leaving Mark to confess his skill in deception. Anna grappled with the idea, but eventually declared her love for him. Ultimately, Anna and Mark are depicted enjoying a meal together as a blissfully married couple, with a son who appears to have inherited his father's knack for deception. He then jokingly encourages his son to finish his meal and tells Anna that their son enjoys it.